Thanks to the Symphony product organization for showcasing the full power of the platform as well. That was really exciting. It is now time for our final session of the day. So we are very excited to welcome key players from the Buyside community. I'd like to welcome to the stage Severine Raymond, Head of EMEA Sales and Account Management at Symphony. Pierre-Emmanuel Charlier, Senior Trader, Head of Trading Innovation at Pictet Asset Management. Andrew Freyre-Sanders, Head of Trading and Analytics, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. Daniel Leon, Global Head of Dealing, Treasury Management, and Global Solutions, HSBC Asset Management. And finally, Robinson Rouchie, Chief of Staff to the CIO, BNP Paribas Asset Management. Severine, I've been looking forward to this discussion, so take it away.
Thank you, Alexandra. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be presenting our first Innovate panel with a buy-side participant around me. I'm really delighted to be there as well with some French speakers. So for once, I will not be the only one with a French accent, which is a relief. So with that, let's start with our first question. So our last Innovate event was a remote event. So is remote working still a topic for your respective firms? And how do you make sure the fluidity of communication is still happening? What is your take on that, Robinson?
Hi everyone. So I suspect you hear me, yes. I guess this is not a new topic. Remote working is an important topic, but not a new topic. And in many ways, as a global asset manager, and I see that I have my friend from HSBC behind me as well, we are facing the challenge of communicating efficiently across the board every day. And when I say communicating efficiently, it's about communicating the right information at the right time to the right people. And I sit on this panel as an asset manager, I would say as an investment professional. And this is what we have to do to be efficient and to generate alpha to our clients. So when I hear about remote working and communication, I would say the COVID crisis helped us in many ways to accelerate and develop tools to enable us to communicate more efficiently. And to that end, I think Symphony, and personally I thank you as well, but I think Symphony helped us to accelerate this trend and gave us the tool to communicate efficiently all the investment ideas that we have within our own portfolio management teams. And I hope, and I see the results of it, it gives the right idea to our portfolio manager to really generate alpha to our clients. So to this perspective, remote working has accelerated the trend that was there, and today I see that as an opportunity, yes.
Excellent, thank you, Robinson. And is it the same experience with Pictet, Pierre?
Kind of the same story for us. So we are, as an asset manager, we have people working in collaboration from Geneva, London, Singapore, Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. So they were, for most of them, used to collaborate remotely, let's say. Mm-hmm. Now we also had some teams that were working maybe more on their own, and they had to learn some process. So it took maybe two directions. The first one was some help in terms of best policies for leading meetings or having some documents and how to behave and react. So that, all the management have put a lot of emphasis on learning and changing the ways. And also the second direction was the use of tools. And maybe there has been also some improvement because people were more having structure, way of thinking. They were writing down more stuff, maybe use less emails or less side discussion, but more things like OneNote as an example, where you can share ideas and work collaboratively. So some sort of improvement, actually.
Excellent. So another question for you, Pierre-Emmanuel. So we heard Brad Levy about the volatility monster this morning. So what is your take on what's happening in the market and how the volatility is impacting your European markets?
So volatility is something that that you want, but to an extent. And with COVID, the rates move, and now the war in Ukraine, we are at very high level historically. So maybe the vision is distorted because of QE and everything. That's the usual explanation. But for an asset manager, it's not really easy to monetize on volatility. And that's what, in my experience, we faced the most recently. So when you want to take position and have conviction, then you are very easily challenged on your stop losses or on the level of volatility that you will add to the strategy. So volatility in that aspect is not easy to manage at the moment. And add to that the fact that banks have, that's also a very topical subject, limited balance sheet, accessing liquidity and managing position with high trading costs is also very challenging. So at the moment we are struggling with this subject.
Thank you. Same question for Robinson?
So I will go in the same direction. I think volatility is something you like, you want, but it's difficult to manage. But in many ways, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for portfolio manager to show that they are truly there to generate alpha, and long-term, short-term and long-term alpha. And the critical aspect of volatility, within our firm today is again, how do we manage it? And I think communication, I'm going back to my earlier comment, is critical in many ways because, things are happening at a very fast pace. And even though we are a long-term investor, we have to adapt constantly. And what we have developed, very recently is the capacity to, share the key information. And I will take an example, but, when I feel like there is a storm coming in and when you manage a large plane, you need the right instrument. Yeah. And in many ways, the challenge for, a lot of us is, you have a lot of lights popping up. We were talking about trading losses, etc. And the reality is you have to know which instruments are reliable, and you have to be able to access a lot of the instrument at the right time. Yeah. So the reality is, with a platform like Symphony, what we are looking at is really, making sure we have access and we give and we provide access to the right platform to our portfolio manager, so that they access this reliable information in a very steady pace. So I see that as an opportunity to really generate alpha, but at the same time, my job is to provide, my portfolio manager with the right tools and the right instrument to weather the storm the best they can.
If I may just add, so I totally agree with the fact that you need to widen your possibilities of using tools. So we've done that, for example, trying to use total return swaps, which was not something that we did before. Trying to improve our processes to be more reactive, more fast, and also what I found interesting is that when you have the right setup in terms of strategies, then you can take opportunities with the volatility. So, as an illustration, we have a distressed team. So we had the right team at the right moment to be able to offer our clients some opportunities that were fitting the situation. We didn't have that team 3 years ago. So by having diversification in your strategies, then you may have more chance of using volatility for the benefit of your clients.
So I hear that volatility is more of an opportunity for you. It's a great news. But how does it impact the investment, the long-term investment into technology? Is there still room for investment in such a disrupted market? I'm going to address this question to Daniel, actually.
Thank you. Well, actually, it's the key point in my view. What we've learned, from the COVID crisis is that, the notion of low touch, high touch were not well defined. We were organized where we thought a big part of our flows were extremely liquid ahead of the crisis, that they were very easy to trade. And suddenly, liquidity moves out of the electronic market, and we find ourselves in a situation where a lot of the flows become illiquid. So when you work in an environment where you industrialize a part of what you do and the rest you keep it very manual, you can become very surprised suddenly when you're not able to cope with the manual work, because each bond requires suddenly a lot of work. So for us, we need to think about our technology as a 360 and covering, the whole range of liquidity. We will cover it differently, but we need to be able to industrialize the very liquid, the reasonably liquid, but as well to invest our technology to optimize the illiquid, to get access to all the source of liquidity, to capture them, to trade them, and to make sure that we are able to react. So that, when the market dynamic changes, we have the tools for a different kind of workflow, different kind of assets, and we're able to be more reactive. And it requires the right investment and the right tools to manage this whole gamut of liquidity.
Excellent. And Andrew, so same question. I know you have a very interesting vision about investment in technology, so what is your take?
I guess the first thing I would say is nobody spends money on risk management systems during bull markets, right? It's always during bear markets or volatile times. So I guess the first part is, and certainly working within asset management side, I guess 2 years now, previously a broker, is things can move quite slowly in terms of investment. People always want to get there. I think there's a constant investment in technology, right? And there's a constant desire to innovate. But I think times of volatility act as a nice catalyst. Yep. So I think volatility itself, for me, it doesn't pose any challenges. I think it's just a nice catalyst to get people around the table to realize they need faster systems. I like the aspect of signal, like reducing the signal processing, and I think that's what a lot of us are trying to achieve, right? So volatility brings more noise, brings more information. Our goal, especially because the technology is already reduced, should we say headcount? We have a lot of tools that make us more efficient, but during volatile times, whether it's liquidity disappears, whether it's new products, new markets, you find yourself suddenly scrambling to either digest all information and make the decision. So for me, I think the innovation, we always want it to be there, and it's a nice catalyst. And I think our goal is to, how should we say, enable ourselves to take advantage of all these situations. And volatility, I think you just want to be faster and better prepared. So I'd just say, it's a good thing, in my opinion, in terms of
That's great.
driving and enabling us to get budgets to do these things.
Perfect, great. So to build up on this theme, so we've discussed automation, but how do you balance automation with tailor-made approach, customization for your customers or for your internal stakeholders? How do you balance the both?
I think the first thing I like to respond on automation is it's actually super easy to automate anything, right? I think there's always been this odd desire to automate trading, and for me, I can flick switches and send all orders to the market in 30 seconds, right? We could take the whole flow, just the price might not be very good, right? So I think, automation, which gets bounded around a lot independently, is really just one part, or it might be the end result. So I guess and I've heard other people mention it today, our biggest investment for the last 3 years is really in analytics and data and kind of putting in place a core infrastructure to give us decision-making capabilities in real time. You can then automate that, right? So the focus on automation, and I look at the example as well with the evolution of electronic trading. Very easy to build basic algos. It's a lot more work to build, more intelligent ones, more dynamic ones, etc. So I think, again, if we answer the technology innovation, where we've taken maybe a lot longer than we like to, is to build, I guess, a core infrastructure, right, in terms of capturing data, using data and giving that decision-making capability. But the last comment I'll make on automation, I guess it ties in with the event today, is really around communication. So again, certainly my time on the brokerage side, there was an enormous amount of effort spent on automating trading. Particularly the equity markets first, was building the pipes, connecting electronically, and then trading. And yet, workflows and communication was left alone. Yep. So you're finding yourself sitting there, you can trade 1,000 names around the world with one button very comfortably, but the amount of effort on communicating that to people, decisions, consuming information, discussing, was well left behind. So I think the automated communication or curating information coming in and providing responses going out with the similar kind of, should we say, respect as we've done with trading is where I think we're playing catch up. So for me, there's automation as a whole. Clearly it's a theme, but it needs to be done in a very considered manner. But in parallel, what we need to think about as we automate trading workflow, you need to do the same with communication. I think the two go hand in hand, and I guess that's probably where our focus is at the moment.
Makes sense. And Daniel, so we saw automation in action earlier today. So how do you balance automation and customization? Same question.
So, and you meant client customization especially.
Yep.
So, I think, all client demands, are great, whether they come from our clients, from our portfolio manager. They always make us better. They help us understand, how they see the value, what is driving, the need. And for us, it's always something key to monitor and to track. So the more we get access to information, like we did on the primary market, the more we are able to have more things to share and more customization, which makes us better asset managers, better curator of client money. So I think it's really important to always listen to the voice. And it's true you have a balance between the needs for customization and the need to manage trading sometimes in a way where you negotiate better by managing large flows and less customized flows. So it's really something where we need to as well, depending on the demand, find which is the best way to manage the client interest. So sometimes we do have interesting conversation with clients, in particular when they are really, really prescriptive in the way they want us to trade, to make sure that, we are not missing on their behalf, an opportunity to trade better. So there's always a conversation to be had to make sure you trade in the best way for them. But I think, ultimately, the more you listen, the more you enhance, and technology can help you do that better, actually. So that's what we found. But there is a balance to be found on the best execution as well.
Totally. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
So we heard about a lot of opportunities, but what about the challenges? So I want to address a question to you, Pierre-Emmanuel. So where do you see inefficiencies, and where do you see workflow that could be improved within Pictet?
Oh, I see that every day, and for me, the challenge is that the devil is in the details. So I agree with what's been said, that you can automate very easily for some stuff, but as a asset manager, there's always something that doesn't work for some type of product. When you touch different asset classes, you're sometimes surprised that what you think is the liquidity you're expecting is not there. I'm talking about FX on the emerging market, for example. So maybe what I'm trying to say is that you can automate developed market FX, G4, without any issue because the liquidity is there, but you cannot apply the same recipe or the same tools to the same asset class because it's not the same liquidity or it's not the same market. So then you may have to customize not only for different clients, but for different markets. Yes. What I'm interested in is more do some automation on exploiting the data that we have and present to a trader the right data that he needs to have to make an informed decision on how he wants to trade in the different options that he still have, voice, electronic, what market. And I think this is where the most efficiency can come, is presenting the right data to the traders.
Excellent.
And that's what we are trying to do.
Andrew, same question. So what are the challenges you're trying to sort and some inefficiency which could be sorted?
I guess one of the first ones is still communication, right? So, and workflows, and it was the same many years ago. If you think about And again, it's the investment in technology in core capabilities. So, we have moved to centralized, OMS. Right? We've got an EMS, we've got trading, but then when you look at the support around that, you have certain processes that live on email. Right?
Yes.
And between us and then between ourselves and the custodian, it will be on email. And obviously with the traders, with the counterparts, it's a combination of Bloomberg or other chat mechanisms internally when our teams. And then you have that communication. And then when we've got support from our external technology providers, they might be a combination of email, phone call, hotlines, etc. And you've got one trade ticket that can flow from order entry all the way through to the markets and back in a nice STP via fixed method. But the communication that goes with that is just exponential.
Yeah.
It just grows. So, attaching what you're doing to a dialogue in parallel is just so critical. And when you've got all these different people in their own domains, and we had it even with the development teams, right, using other platforms to manage work and to manage jobs, it's still very messy, amazingly. So the investment was always very much on what we did, not how we did it, if that makes sense. So I guess the biggest challenge for us is then, and that comes with a slight behavior change. Some of it is forcing people to use certain platforms. So that for me is one of the biggest challenges because it makes things more efficient, right? I think the word's been used a lot, collaboration, and it is really, really critical. You're seeing it in, I guess, Web3 world today, where people are coming together very efficiently from around the world. But we seem to not do it within organizations. There's not as much effort on that. So for me, challenge number one is how do we bring all of these conversations into the same domain, into the same place, and link that back to what we're doing, right? So it's still not separate. That's one, and that's where the themes of interoperability become important. Yes. The second challenge, and it's good to see it, is the move away from everybody competing with one another. Yeah. Again, if we look at a lot of technology, certainly in finance, is this OMS. Well, I want to do this, and I want to do the EMS, and I want to do this. And we can be your TCA provider. And we've got this great analytics tool, but that's not your centre of expertise. Why don't you do OMS well? Just link up with these people, provide the interfaces very well, so that I'll take my TCA from there, I'll do this bit internally, I'll take that bit there. So the other challenge for me is how do we get technology providers in a room to do what they do very well and to just enable us to build an ecosystem that works. So for me, I find that a bigger challenge because we like lots of bits of technology, and I think people used to, is it buy versus build, all these debates. For me, it's build a bit, buy a bit, but make everybody connect together. I think that for me holds a really big key. And I find that a challenge because, we as an organization are often, chairing two technology companies to get them to build interfaces so we don't have to do it. And the benefit of that, I think, is huge. So for us, again, we've got, I guess, a core vision, which for me, to a degree, and we're not going to build everything, is very much data-driven, and it sounds like everybody else, right? Automation, analytics, systematic trading all sounds great, but it's building the ecosystem around that to make that efficient is quite important. So communication and getting people to work together, for me, are probably the two bigger challenges.
Excellent. So I know you're working on a lot of projects with us, so hopefully for the next Innovate, we'll have an idea session as well, so we count on you, Andrew. So thank you, everybody. It has been a very insightful discussion. So with that, I'll pass it over to Alexandra